to do that again. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Hello. Well, hello. I just had a beautiful, beautiful, I don't know if the delivery can be the same, but I wanted to welcome you to the show that everybody thought was wholesome, but ended up offending your grandpa. Music Exposed. Hello. That was the first time that I was muted. I totally forgot that I have to unmute myself. But yeah, hello everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful day, evening, or night, or wherever you are. My name is Sarah Jazz. If you've never seen my face before, I was a professional touring musician before I started Twitch. And now I do Twitch and do these shenanigans. And if you don't know what Music Exposed is all about, we showcase you the hottest, the bestest, the most awesomest musicians on Twitch. And that's what we do here. And we want to interview them. Maybe you will find out something new about your favorite music streamers, or you will find new music streamers that will be your new favorites. I don't think streamers want that, right? Like the...
Yeah, I don't want to find any new streamers ever.
Yeah, I don't think
I
ones...
just want to watch the same 3 over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, favorite streamers. But sometimes you gotta scoot over, you know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, so today we have EdPlaysJazz. He's a jazz musician. He plays all types of music instruments. Wow. Music instruments, that's right? I'm losing my mind today. He plays all types of instruments. He is trained in jazz, so you know he's a good and real musician. You know what I mean? I'm not calling everybody who doesn't do jazz not musicians. I'm sorry. That's probably what it sounds like, and probably what I
real musicians. Real musicians. That's
also probably what I want to say subconsciously, because I'm also a trained and jazz musician. Yeah, and we are joined by, like always, by our co-host, The Silence Noise. Let's go and say hello to him. Okay. That sounds like me. I cannot not hear myself in that. Hello, Silence. How are you doing today? Oh, hello.
I'm just over here being a fake musician, just the usual. Yeah. Just chilling over here. I don't even know what music is. Also, I would like to say that I realized that a lot of people in the chat room, a lot of people watching the show, only know you as a touring jazz musician. Like, clearly they saw you on stage somewhere, and that's how they ended up at this Twitch stream.
Obviously,
that's
because
awesome.
I'm very famous. Every single person in this chat knows who I am. They saw me live. Thank you so much, muito obrigada, Warrior, pelo Sem Beach.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw you in Galactiborg. It's my favorite jazz show I've ever seen. And I figured since me as a fake musician, I know nothing about jazz. Yeah. The good news is we've got like 50 minutes, so you could literally teach me everything, right? And then in this 50 minutes, you could teach me everything about jazz. So what's the most important thing I need to know about jazz?
The most important thing is you learn everything and then forget everything.
Okay, what is everything? Can you define everything?
Everything in terms of theory, in terms of, chords, improvisation, and things like that. Feel, obviously, and then after you learn
improvisation.
Well, you actually learn improvisation. You obviously have to be trained to start doing improvisation. For some people, it comes very naturally, and they already have that, people. I mean, you could be I don't know if you do improv, but you as somebody who is a songwriter, that's basically what you are. As an improv person, you write basically stories or come up with stories and ideas on the spot. So it's basically songwriting on the spot, basically. I
can improv in any other setting, but musically, it's not something that I've explored a lot. I've done a couple of live looping streams here and there, but I don't really have a great setup for it.
Yeah.
But it's also not my favorite thing to do. So for me, it's like, I like to improv like on the stage or on a show like this or that kind of thing, but I'm not a huge fan of, at least not yet. I haven't found the outlet that's like, all right, I'm happy, digging on this loop for like an hour and going
noodling. Yeah, but
that's why I admit I'm a guy that I'm excited to see Ed play, and I've obviously I sometimes kind of watch your stream, even though it makes me feel physically ill sometimes.
Mine.
And it's mostly just because like my hope is that someday I can understand a little bit more. I can understand how the noodling pays off in the end.
I mean, let's be honest, I don't noodle too much. I'm not a big noodler, if that makes sense. Sometimes I do noodle.
You only like small noodles?
Yeah, I only do small noodling. Like I don't do like the big noodling, you know what I mean? But sometimes
what about average noodling?
Average noodling, it depends on the day, Like okay, if I'm on an ego trip day, I will do the big noodling, right? If I'm on a very emotional day where I'm like, oh, I need to, express my emotions, it's a small noodling day. And
I see.
Then on the average, it's an average noodling day. You know what I mean?
It must be nice to have such variety.
Yeah.
That's clearly one of the interesting things about jazz is there's so much variety in what you can choose.
Yeah.
That just really helps with selecting the right noodle for that day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It also depends on the type of noodling. Are you noodling with a purpose?
I see.
Or are you noodling without a purpose? Are you like just noodling?
Feel like
is it trained noodling or is it untrained noodling? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's like, how can you really call it noodling if you're not putting any effort into it? Like I heard of this technique once from a very famous jazz teacher. His name was Sam Johnson. He was a great noodler, and he talked about this position that a lot of jazz musicians use when they're not noodling appropriately. It was called the starfish, and it's just like I know that Sam really had a lot to say about how disappointing it is when jazz musicians are only noodling in the starfish position.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Yeah, I agree. I think the noodling should stop. I think the big noodling is something we should boycott, to be very honest with you.
I see.
The big noodling is just, it's too much. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just...
From your jazz teacher, did you learn a lot of good noodling positions? Like what noodling positions are your favorite noodling positions?
My favorite noodling positions? Warrior, thank you so much for the 20 euros. Muito obrigado, Vichy. Thank you. My favorite noodling position. I don't know. The thing is, I think I noodle the best standing.
I see.
Yeah, that's why. And also, like,
it just makes you more flexible. Like, obviously, you can move around. You can work the instrument a little bit more. You've got some variety in things that you can do. You can put your whole body into it.
Yeah, exactly. And also the chromatic way. Like, I go to every nook and cranny. You know what I mean?
Right.
I go into every little spot. Like, I press all the buttons. That's how I noodle. That's my...
I understand.
Yeah.
Full force. It's like a full body release.
It's a full...
You just release it all. You leave it all on the floor. It's like, if Kobe Bryant were a jazz musician, that would be the case. You just leave it all on the floor. It's just, you make sure that it's all out there for everyone to see in every noodle.
Yeah. And very important is the way I work my fingers. The fingering is very important. You need to be fast. Also, thank you so much, Warrior, for gifting that sub to Sabilu. Thank you.
Sabilu. Do you feel like that's something that you were taught directly or that you learned more from extensive practice?
Oh, both. No, I mean, extensive practice, yes. But you kind of learn from other people, right? Like, practice is also learning from other people, listening to other people and stuff, Sure, and so it's never a one-way street, It's always a two-way street. It always involves somebody else. You can't just do your noodling alone.
Unless you're bad. Yeah, unless you're a bad jazz musician. Then in that case, you might noodle alone a lot because you don't really have any other options.
Yeah.
It's like then you find yourself like late at night at home and you're like, oh man, it's been a long day, but I haven't practiced yet today. Yeah. And you just turn on the computer and you go to a video site and you turn on a video And you have to get that in though.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way. You have to noodle by yourself a lot to really gain the stamina.
Yeah, you do.
You know, and make sure. Yeah, because you don't want to be disappointing when you're finally on the stage. You need to make sure that you've really built up that fortitude. Yeah. And the best way to do it, like I said, I mean, for me as a musician, I really make sure to watch a lot of videos like this as well, and just really make sure that I get.
It's always important to learn from your partner in noodling and fingering for sure.
Underslop, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime. It's always important to learn from your partner in noodling and fingering for sure. Yeah. So I think one of the important thing is, if one is noodling, the other shouldn't.
I see.
You know what I mean?
That's really interesting.
You can't just let everybody on stage like noodle. You know what I mean? Like somebody needs to be kind of.
What if that's kind of the purpose of the piece, though? Like, what if you're playing like a really difficult piece and you know, everyone just kind of noodles, and that's what you're there for? Like, you're just like everybody came to see that specific thing. You know? What about that?
I mean, no. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you go to, gosh, wow, I'm very bad with names, but there's this, and nobody will help me because you guys don't know about free jazz, but there is a very specific alto saxophonist who basically has whole albums of just everybody noodling. Just everybody noodles all over each other, you know what I mean?
That's crazy.
The whole album is them noodling all over each other.
Hey, isn't that more of a Japanese technique, though? You know, I've heard that might have originated, you know, with Japanese jazz.
Noodle, thank you for the follow. Again, sorry. I feel like, come again.
Yeah, I asked if that was more of a Japanese technique, like everybody just kind of noodling everywhere. You know, it seems to have originated from Far Eastern jazz.
No, it's actually very American, to be honest.
Oh, I see.
The much noodling comes from. It comes from, let's be honest, it comes from both America and Africa too. Africa also has a lot of, they have a lot of like spiritual noodling.
I see.
It's very spiritual noodling. Yeah.
I can't say that I've experienced that. You know, I do find myself pretty well versed in music and in noodling, and it's odd that I haven't experienced that. Maybe it's something you know, we can ask EdPlaysJazz about, or that maybe we'll experience it later in the stream. I can't say I've had that experience.
Yeah, but for real though, like improvisation is something you actually have to learn. Improvisation is something you gotta learn. It's basically, how do I say this? It's basically, quoting something you learned and putting your own ideas into it. And at the same time, you know, and kind of something like that, because once you hear what you want to play and once you hear what your ideas are in a solo, like they come in the moment, right? Like a little bit before you start. Thank you, Slongo, for the 200 bits. A little bit.
Slongo.
Also,
hype train.
Also, you started a hype train.
That's true. Thank you so much.
You have to learn how to improvise so you can truly be free. That's why that's actually a good paraphrase by Bird, who said you got to learn it all and then you got to forget it all. It's basically you got to have the tools. It's the same as talking. It's like language, you know? You learn the ABC in school and stuff, and maybe you even, you know, went to college or whatever, and at some point you start writing poems or you start writing stories or something. It's the same thing. Or you tell people stories by talking or something. It's basically the same. Like that's basically improvisation. You gotta have like, you gotta learn it, and it's something you have to learn, and an art you have to practice and get into so you can actually be free. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and you mentioned the tools. What do you think is your favorite tool?
I don't know an answer to that. Listen, Listen, I was so into the jazz thing now that I couldn't even. Then I forgot to do a good analogy. Now I'm all out of analogies. I'm sorry. I'm all out of analogies that could be both sexual and musical at the same time. I apologize.
We've hit the bottom of the barrel, friends. The bottom of the barrel.
Maybe the music stand. Haha.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know.
What would you so? For a more serious, non-dick joke related question, what do you think would be if you were going to introduce somebody to jazz that wasn't a big fan of jazz or historically has been someone that didn't like jazz? What would be the kind of introduction to jazz that you would give people?
You mean musically?
Or that you would recommend?
Music, yeah, a music piece, or
or if someone I've been a person that historically I'm okay with jazz, but it's never been something that I've particularly loved or enjoyed. But I'm also a person that can really appreciate music, and so what would be something that you would say, all right, this is the direction you might want to head in. If you have this kind of taste, you might want to walk in this door as opposed to listening to super noodly jazz.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person. It depends where they come from, because jazz is not jazz. Jazz is not doesn't equal jazz.
Jazz.
Yeah, jazz doesn't equal jazz.
Jazzing.
Jazz is like jazz doesn't really, as a genre itself, doesn't really exist. If you know what I mean. Okay. It's the same as saying it's just rock. But there's different types of rock, There's ballads, there's ambience, there's metal, there's I don't know, like pop rock and stuff like that. There's a lot of different types. Like funk goes under jazz. Some might argue blues goes under jazz. Acid jazz goes under jazz. Hip hop jazz goes under jazz, and jazz is a lot of things. So there's also jazz rock.
Would you consider Boy to be a hip-hop jazz song?
I don't know. I think that's more EDM or something, or house.
I don't know. You would compare that. So you think like Skrillex would hear that and he'd be like, "Yeah, boy, you're the definition of hair, boy."
Totally.
That's
He would be like, "This is quality.
That's right.
This is quality." No, but for real, it depends on the person. Like, when somebody says they don't like jazz, it's because they don't know jazz. It's because they don't know. They probably even listen to things that are jazz, but they don't realize that it's jazz. Like, for example, funk. Funk is a jazz genre, is a jazz subcategory, if that makes sense. And
Bardic, I don't think Skrillex has ever said "yeah, boy." Probably not.
Yeah, boy.
I don't know what Skrillex says.
I don't know either.
My only intro to Skrillex is his music and then his appearances on What Would Diplo Do. So clearly, very based in reality.
I mean, I am a jazz musician who doesn't like Dixieland, for example. Dixieland or swing. I'm not a fan of swing. Unless it's electro swing, I can...
You like to stay very still and hard, yeah. I get it.
No, I like bebop. I like bebop, yeah. I like modern jazz a lot. I like ballads a lot. I also enjoy quite a few jazz standards. Oh, music from the old American songbook, like The Lady is a Tramp. Some of you might know, if you aren't into jazz, then some of you might know from Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. Amy Winehouse was a type of jazz, if you think, like, a lot of people think of jazz when they, or think of free jazz when they hear jazz. When somebody's like, oh, I'm into jazz, they think either free jazz or Dixieland or swing or something like that. But for example, I'm not into that. So I could say I'm not into jazz, but I am, because jazz are so many different things. Jazz is just the top, the roof, basically, but it doesn't make the full house. Like, what is jazz? Like, there's no definite answer to that, if that makes sense.
I like
Mr. X, thank you.
15 months of HSWP EdPlay 1 Jazz Saraja 1 FFs.
I understand that. When my Dixie swings, it likes to jazz.
Thank you so much, Mr. X, for the resub. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I think when people say I don't like jazz, it's because they weren't introduced properly to jazz, because I'm sure there is some type of jazz they like, because jazz is basically listen, jazz is the jazz is the rap, for example, or hip hop originated from jazz. So like there's a lot like jazz is very like oops. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot
You're clearly not using your tool appropriately.
I'm not.
This is a problem. You're not supposed to rub on your tool in public like this.
I know. I mean, I already thought about my tool. I now have an answer to that. I've thought about it.
Okay, what is it?
My favorite tool is my mouth.
I see.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite tool. And my tongue. There's a lot of tongue work with the saxophone.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And throat also. You have to open your throat in a very like open way, you know? You have to open it really wide, you know?
I get it.
Or close it depending on the situation, you know? If you want the sounds to come out a little bit different, then you close it more. If you want them to be very, very voluminous and thick, you know?
Can you give me an example of a voluminous sound? Could you make a voluminous sound right now?
No.
Oh, okay. I just figured that you being a jazz musician, you know, could explain these things. I'm clearly in good faith, just trying to understand. Okay? Mm-hmm. I'm asking really good questions here.
Yeah. So Moving Dutchman is saying jazz is overrated, but which jazz is overrated? Which one? That's the thing. Like, which jazz is overrated? I also like when people come into my stream, they see me playing a saxophone over metal, for example, and they're like, this is some good jazz. And I'm like, that's not jazz, you dumb fuck.
True.
What are you talking about?
I did say earlier that, you know, I prefer the Swedish black jazz. You know, that's my favorite. You know, the ones with the really guys. You know, that's my favorite type of jazz.
Yeah, the ones with the
that takes a lot of throat work as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If jazz isn't jazz, then does that mean that Sarah Jazz isn't jazz? I mean, listen, legit. I don't do a lot of jazz on this channel. I mean, I started to do it again now with the DMCA things and everything. Like, I started to get out my jazz standards and shit. But I didn't do jazz before because nobody requested jazz. So I would just play my instrument over whatever. You know what I mean?
Why didn't you change your name to Sarah Not Jazz then?
Sarah Not Jazz or Not Sarah Jazz? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Sarah Jazz. Definitely Sarah.
Yeah. Just Sarah. I'm sure that's still available on Twitch. And I'm sure
Sarah
Twitch
Nut Jazz,
also I'm sure Twitch would say, "Yeah, Sarah, you're so important that we will just let you have the name Sarah." Sorry. So just Sarah.
Yes, just Sarah. Yes. I agree.
Just Sarah. So. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest argument or disagreement you've ever been in with somebody related to jazz? Like, have you ever had somebody like in a club who's like, fuck jazz and blah, blah, blah? What do you think is like the biggest argument you've ever been in?
Not at all. I don't think.
You've never been in an argument? Ever?
I've never been. I am a very calm person. I would never rage.
That's right.
I don't have any anger in me. Listen, I'm the typical rich white girl, obviously.
I see.
Yeah. My parents were rich. My parents gave me everything. So, you know, I didn't have any problems other than boy problems at school, you know what I mean? Those are my biggest traumas, are boys not liking me back. You know, I was very popular in school and stuff. You know.
Well, it's all because of the constant noodle jokes. It's like, you know, it got a little tired by 11th grade. People are like, this was funny back in 6th grade, but in 11th grade, we're really mature. We're really into things like jazz.
Yeah.
You know, we've got our berets out. We snap instead of clap. You know, we do all those things, you know.
You dealt with my mess ups on stage. Very true. Very true, Hameta. I took it like a champ. You know what I mean? I took it like a champ. You know,
it's good to know. That's what you really learn in improv, is how to take it like a champ. It's true.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. You gotta take it, but like a champ. And if you don't like it, you gotta have like a word, like a safe word or something.
Like a safe word?
Yeah,
I see.
You have to have a safe word.
Do you think that most jazz musicians use the same safe word, or is it only? Does everyone kind of have their own unique one?
I don't know. It depends. Like, I've had moments on stage where, you know, or heard of stories of a drummer, for example, turning around to the whole band. I mean, he doesn't turn around because he's literally the one staring at everybody's ass. But him getting up and in mid-song and throwing his drum set and saying, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." You know? So I don't know how that related to your question, but...
I don't either, but I understand.
It's my answer now.
I have noticed that, you know, I have done an informal study of drummers, and most of them, you know, definitely seem to be into ass as opposed to, you know, other parts of the body.
Yes. I mean, let's be honest. Every time I had my drummers were always very lucky, you know, because I got a sweet ass. You know what I mean?
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Did you learn about that, you know, when you were learning jazz?
Yes.
How to have a sweet ass?
Yes. That's also
good.
a thing that you learn as a soloist or a band leader.
Yeah.
One of the very, very most important things as a band leader or a soloist is having a sweet ass. That's what makes people and breaks people. If you don't have a good ass,
that's right.
And if you stand in front of the band, you will not make it, because people get tired of looking at your flat ass, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one likes flat jazz, no one likes flat ass. It's just it's the world turns.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. No flat anything, you know? Even sharp, it's like, you know, you can't be sharp or flat as a soloist.
That sharp ass would be like the equivalent of being really bony or something, right? Like
that nobody wants that, you know what I mean? Yeah, it
like
hurts.
You slap a bony ass and it hurts your hand.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. Like it literally hurts. When somebody is flat or sharp, it hurts, you know?
Right.
It's just uncomfortable.
It can hurt your ears too, you know, in the musical
That's
context.
what I mean. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm talking about ears.
Else. So is this, have I learned everything there is to know about jazz? I'd be surprised, because we still have a lot of time left, and you said you studied this for years.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Ask more questions.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
Just ask more questions about jazz. I'm here to answer. You know, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer your questions. Today, you are the one asking the questions and not me. Normally, I ask you questions.
You know, who has the sweetest ass in jazz? You know, I've heard rumors that Louis Armstrong might be it. You know,
I don't know.
Possible.
Maybe Miles Davis, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
I mean, Miles Davis had some sweet ass cheeks. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So,
for sure.
But you know, everybody talked about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's true.
So
that's true.
Maybe Nina Simone. Maybe Nina Simone. Okay. Or Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, also very sweet ass. You know?
He was definitely known for his sweet ass. The problem was that to get through the sweet ass, you had to get through the violent temper, you know, so that was the tough part.
Yeah.
It was a tough ass to just admire from afar.
Yeah. The thing with Nina Simone and Charles Mingus, thank you so much for the resub, Walk and Junk. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
20 months. Baller.
The thing about those is they set the most time, so they didn't have to have a sweet ass. You know what I mean? But the ones standing, like the trumpet players, in front, right? The guitar soloist, Django Reinhardt had a sweet ass. You know what I mean?
You know, I've heard.
But he also sat
players,
the most time, so that's
the toughest part about it being a trumpet player is the fact that you have to work on so many different cheeks, because it's like you have to have great facial cheeks, and then you have to have great ass cheeks too to meet these standards. It's tough, man. I don't know how you can focus on so many areas of the body at once.
Yeah.
Like that feels like a lot.
Yeah.
You know, normally if you're doing like a workout program, you focus on a couple of areas or a single area of the body at once. But it's like to be able to focus on all four cheeks at once. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. But yeah, I would say like Miles Davis is one of the most known sweet asses in jazz. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a saxophonist, probably somebody like John Coltrane. I think John Coltrane is the one that is the most known. I don't know if Ben Webster, those are a little bit older, or Charlie Parker. Those also had some sweet asses, you know what I mean?
It's more classic ass, you know? It's classical gas, you know?
I mean, not really. They're not, I mean, you mean classical music, or you mean like old classic, like traditional, or what do you mean?
Both. I mean both, obviously.
Because
like
none of them did classical music. I'm
listen,
just saying.
Listen, all music essentially derived from classical music, and we all know what a fan Mozart was of asses. You know, that's just the reality.
Yes. I mean, while we are talking about classic, actually, Claude Debussy, you know him for sure, right? Claude Debussy I do. If you guys don't know him, it's the music from the Twilight movie, you know, Claire de Lune and Arabesque and all of that. And he was a big inspiration for a lot of jazz musicians, actually. Like there are a lot of crossovers, and
I don't know. I've seen a lot of videos, and you know, I've regularly seen videos on the internet of cats or dogs sometimes walking across a piano, and I figured that was more of an inspiration for jazz. You know, just kind of whatever noise you could produce by like banging on the instrument.
Yeah, no. Now we're going back to the noodling, though. That's more the big noodling. You know what I mean? That's the point, right? Though. That's the thing, though. A lot of people think that jazz or improvisation in jazz.
What the fuck is this even? Low quality.
Thank you, Aristotle, for the 100 bits.
Someone gonna clap cheeks to this in the future.
Someone's gonna clap cheeks to this in the future.
Very true.
Agreed.
Very true.
Agreed.
Very true. And I forgot what I was going to say.
You were going to talk about noodling again. I don't know what it was.
Oh,
it's true.
Yeah. What did you say before that?
I like Friendly says dropping a piano off a roof is pure free jazz. It's true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Free jazz. Sorry.
It's also Free Fallin' by Tom Petty.
Yeah, so,
it's both.
Okay, but that's the thing. That's the thing that a lot of people think. Like jazz or improvisation is just mindless and completely untrained, random notes over anything. And that is free jazz. That's what I'm saying. People, when they say jazz, they mean free jazz. But free jazz is absolutely not, doesn't cover most of jazz. Free jazz is like, I don't know, 2% of what jazz can be. You know? It's very trained.
Like milk. Jazz is definitely like milk in that
Like
example.
milk?
Yeah, exactly. Like 2% milk.
Oh, yeah. Like 2%.
Yeah.
Free jazz is like 2% milk.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing practically.
Yeah. Or 3.5% milk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
sometimes
that's the same thing.
Too. Sometimes it's skim. I understand.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And jazz in general, or improvisation, it's very trained. It's a very technical thing. You have to have trained a lot, many years, practiced a lot to get to the point, because it's not something random. It has a structure, and it has laws. You know what I mean? But people, when they say jazz, I don't like jazz.
But who enforces the jazz laws?
Obviously, the jazz police.
Yeah. So tell me about the jazz police. How did you not get recruited to the jazz police?
So the jazz police are people that think they own jazz and they know everything about jazz, and anybody has to always quote the jazz greats like Miles Davis, John Coltrane. And modern jazz or contemporary jazz doesn't have any value unless it's the traditional jazz. Right. These people are basically they're stuck in the 50s and 60s, basically. You know what I mean?
I see.
And there's only one way to jazz in their heads. So obviously, you know me as a rebel, right?
Yeah,
I'm a big rebel. I mean,
that's you.
You know, that's me.
I agree.
So I never was recruited to the jazz police, and I'm very sad about that, to be very honest with you.
Maybe maybe you'll still have a shot at like the jazz FBI, or maybe even the jazz Secret Service. Those could be elite organizations that would accept your level of noodling. You know, if you keep learning the improvisational techniques the way that you're talking about, you might end up a level above the jazz police. That could just be what it is.
Yeah.
Defund the jazz police.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
The Jazz County Sheriff. Yeah, you could definitely be a Jazz County Sheriff. It's true.
Imagine on the internet somebody says something like, this is not how you play over this chord, and my answer is, hey, it is how I play over this chord. I know, because I'm the Jazz County Sheriff, okay? And they're like, oh, okay.
I think that should be your official title. I agree.
Yeah, I think
that should be your official title.
That should, yeah. I think that should be my new description for the channel. Sarah Jazz, I'm the Jazz County Sheriff. You know?
Of what county? What county would you choose?
I don't know. You pick one for me, please.
Oh, well, we'll have to think about it. We'll have to think of a good county name. Well, see, you know, I grew up in Michigan, and a little known fact about Michigan that people don't realize is that there is a Highway 69 in Michigan. And the good thing about Highway 69 is that it passes through the town of Climax, Michigan. So maybe we can find out what county that's in, and that could be the county where you're the jazz county.
Is that also where Intercourse is?
No, it's not. It's not in that area, but you know, that particular combination just feels like it would fit. It just feels like it would fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
If people would like to verify that information, you can look it up on Google Maps. We just need to know the county name, and Sarah can be the jazz county sheriff.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Do you have any other questions for me as a jazz musician? Yeah.
You know, do you ever find that, you know, surface things can make a difference in jazz? Like, you know, if someone do you find that people with certain hair colors are better at certain types of jazz than others? Like if you're a blonde or you're a brunette, like when you change your hair color, does it change your jazz?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. Like, how is your current hair color impacting your jazz?
So I would say when I had my natural color, I was more the serious, natural, non-thoughty jazz musician. Very serious.
That's true.
I was almost.
Are there a lot of thoughts in jazz?
Yes, and they play horribly. That's you know. That's the point. They just show up
on stage. They just sit on stage with their instrument next to them and wait for tips like that.
Kind of. They wear very short dresses.
I see.
You know.
I see.
Both men and
they
women,
just sit
obviously.
on the stool on their phone. There's like a trumpet next to them.
Yes. And they maybe toot one sound or something on one note, and then everybody's like.
Yeah, she's like, I need $100 to even play, you know, 3 notes. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Oh my god.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you my life journey as a jazz musician according to my hair colors, right?
I see.
So
okay,
natural color, I have brown hair naturally, right? Natural color is very, very, very serious about jazz and doing jazz and being, you know, having a lot of technique and being virtuoso and stuff like that. Then I started. Then I started with. Then I had like reddish hair, reddish brown.
Okay.
I started to get less
chestnut.
Yeah, chestnut. I started to get less serious and more like got into the EDM thing, you know. And then I went blonde, and from that moment on, I started to also embrace my sexiness. You know what I mean?
I see.
And playing worse, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I went to pink and blue, and then just interchanged between those, and just completely lost my seriousness to my music, and made a parody of myself, basically. And now I don't know how to play Autumn Leaves even anymore. You know?
That's sad.
And
it's amazing.
Exactly.
How much
Wait. Let me just. Yeah, you said that's sad, right? That's sad. Exactly. That's why I have black hair now. Because now I embrace the sadness of the whole process.
What do you think is the saddest jazz song? What's the saddest jazz song to you?
Probably, unironically, I think Gloomy Monday.
Okay.
It's about, you know.
A gloomy Monday?
Yeah. I don't know if you're allowed to say that word, but it's a S word. Starts with sui. You know,
I see.
I don't know if we are allowed
like
to say
pigs.
that on Twitch.
Sweet!
It's like soy sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like for pigs. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
I've also written a song about pigs, so I understand.
Yeah, I know.
When you get in that sweet energy, you know, it's a lot.
Yeah, like pigs and soy sauce and pigs sweet sour are so good. It tastes amazing. Don't you think?
Do you find that there's a particular type of cuisine that makes you better at jazz? Like,
oh yeah,
because like how some people are like, oh, you know, you should eat this food and it'll you know make you feel better. Or it has this vitamins in it. What's the jazz food? Like, what do jazz musicians eat?
I mean, my bandmates always ate steak, like the most expensive steak with some, you know, rum or whiskey or whatever. That's what they would eat. But I love sushi. I would always go for sushi because I like it raw.
I see.
I like it raw.
Raw jazz.
I like it raw. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How raw?
I just
how raw
very
do you like
raw.
it?
I like it so raw that it hurts. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that. Like sometimes you just gotta. Sometimes your body's just not prepared for that, for the level of jazz you're about to experience.
Exactly. And the level of rawness, you know. I like raw, just like my feelings. They're very raw. You know, I struggle to share my feelings too, by the way, in private, you know what I mean? I struggle to tell people how I feel, how I really feel. But when I do, it's very raw. So people don't understand because it's too raw. I didn't find the words to explain it yet, you know?
I like Savvy says steak and sushi. I'm a jazzer at heart. Have you ever had both steak and sushi to prepare for a gig?
But I have had very recently sushi and onion rings.
That doesn't sound bad.
It's actually great. I'm not even kidding you.
It doesn't sound bad. I feel like you could do it.
It's actually
why do you think so many jazz musicians wear stupid hats?
Oh yeah. So stupid hats are very important in the jazz community. That and stupid bandanas and shit like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I've seen some stupid bandanas.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah. I think it's because it gives you more seriousness on stage. And so you exude a coolness that and so people know. Like they look at you and they know that is a jazz musician. You know what I mean? Like they look at you and they're like, that person right there walking down the street, I know that is a jazz musician.
That's right.
Because they're so cool. They're a cool cat. You know what I mean? They're a cool cat.
Why is cat so used in jazz? Why are cats and jazz so close?
Because we love pussy.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that.
Pussy is amazing.
What about dumb facial hair? It seems like silly hats and dumb facial hair.
Yeah.
You know, are something I also see a lot in jazz musicians. Why is that? Same thing.
Same thing. It's it's the same thing. It's the I'm a jazz musician. You know, there's a difference. There's like the college jazz musician who just has a half beard and looks like a nerd, you know. Yeah. Is mostly white, you know. Is mostly white and very has like a very awkward beard. And that is the college jazz student. But when they get older and you know, and get a pat on the back by the real jazz musicians, you know, by those that have been on stage and on tour for a long,
ones with
for
the
many
sweetest
years.
Asses.
Yeah, exactly. Those. Once that starts to happen, they start to adapt the stupid hats and the full-grown beards, you know, and the bandanas.
I like this. I like what they said. Where did it go? Oh man, are the ones in hats undercover jazz police? Is that like could it be signifying that they're in the jazz police?
If a jazz musician wears a stupid hat, it is very likely that they are part of the jazz police. They're probably undercover. Yeah. They're probably disguising it as civil people. Yeah.
That's right. I can understand that. This has been really helpful. I feel like I'm understanding a lot more. About jazz.
Yeah.
Do you find that, all right, so as someone that's been in the jazz community and then also, you know, been in the real world sometimes, you know, sometimes you've been in there. Do you find that, you know, when you've been approached by people in the jazz community, are they generally more awkward than your average person? Or what do you think, like, how can you know, like, okay, this is a jazz person that's approaching me right now?
When they start talking about what specifically your brand of pick or your brand of instrument and the model or what strings, you know, what exactly is that string with a G string? What exactly is that? Or reeds, you know, for saxophonists or mouthpieces for any wind, you know, it's or what type of wood is that you have there on your instrument, you know, when they start with that and then they start trying to convince you that what they use is the best and gives the best sound. You know, sound is very important for jazz musicians.
What kind of wood is your favorite?
To be honest, you know, I like synthetic wood the best. That's just what gives me the best pleasure. You know what I mean? Right.
Wood that's not actually wood.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it's synthetic. It's good wood. It just has a longer longevity. You know, it has longevity. It works right away. You don't have to wet it first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can just go in from the very beginning, and it sounds amazing. You know, it just works.
I like that latex. Is there latex wood? Have you ever used that?
No, that would be too flobby. There's no latex involved.
Needs some strength to it. I
Yeah,
understand.
it needs to be hard. It can't be floppy.
I get it.
You need your, as a saxophonist or as an instrumentalist in general, you need your wood to be hard, you know?
Yeah. When you were on tour, do you feel like you got a lot of these types of questions and comments? Do you feel like this conversation, about jazz, has this been kind of, par for the course? Like when you're on the road, people would come up to you and they would ask you about wood and they would ask you about, noodling. Do you feel that was common?
Yeah, sure. Especially if they were saxophonists or jazz musicians themselves. They would come and be like, what is your mouthpiece? How do you do that with your mouth? You do it so well, Yeah. How does it feel like being a whammin playing the saxophone? Because whammin clearly can't play jazz, They can only sing jazz, obviously. So
I understand.
Yeah, So yeah, I would be asked about my wood all the time. And I would share my stories about my wood, to be very honest.
How many women did you know that were in jazz? Do you feel like you had like a community of, female jazz musicians that were around? Like when they would see you, they'd be like, oh, there she is. There's Sarah. She's my homegirl.
No, absolutely not.
Female jazz things.
No, actually, I'm going to be serious here for a second. And this is me bragging. So there was this girl who was in a very near city of me, female saxophonist. Has toured a lot too, been to France and whatever. Not gonna name any names. But she was like highly praised and whatever. And she wouldn't even accept my friend request on Facebook because yes, jazz musicians work through Facebook, call us boomers, whatever, And
jazz musicians clearly like very old things.
Yes, they do, obviously. I mean, they're stuck in the 50s and 60s, you know what I mean? Especially the jazz police,
They're always going to be behind.
Yeah. So she was like highly praised and stuff. And people would be like, there was like an unspoken rivalry going on between us two. And
I see.
the moment I met her, online basically, or like gig-wise, the gigs that I didn't get, she would get, or she wouldn't get, I would get, things like that. And in the end, the first and last time we met was when she played with her band, the opener to my band.
I see. I like
because we were the main act, and she opened for us.
Did you ever slam dunk on her? Like I like that question.
Dunk?
Did you ever dunk on her? Did you ever
musically,
like, play
sure,
her in, like,
yes, sure. I went on that day. I went full on big noodling because she did like a little bit of smooth jazz and shit like that. I went on
big
full
noodle
noodling.
Big
noodle energy, 100,000%.
Right.
I went full on big noodle energy because
Did you literally like blow her through the wall with the big noodle energy? She was just like sitting there, and it's like she knew it's just all directed at her, and it was like a kamehameha. And just
kind of, yeah. Sure. I saw her in the audience. She was eating, and she almost choked. You know what I mean?
Was she eating sushi or steak?
I think she was eating pork, so you can obviously already tell she isn't a real jazz musician, because real jazz musicians eat either fancy steak or fancy sushi, as you know.
I understand. Rough jazz is pretty good too.
Yeah.
I agree. Rough jazz is some good.
Paid
jazz,
by the venuers or paid by a rich guy that will after then
did you ever have any
that he talked to you.
Speaking of rich guys, were you ever courted or like propositioned by rich jazz guys to like come play, your saxophone on their balcony in an Italian villa or something?
Oh yeah. Like private parties and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Those are always fun because those gigs are the most fun because the people don't really want you to play. They actually just want to talk to you. So you're eating, they're stuffing your face all the time with food because, this is the best food in town and blah, blah, blah. And then they give you the best vodka in the world and whatever.
Yeah. That's right.
And you just full and drunk.
So when rich men invite you to parties, you literally just stand in front of them and eat. Like that's your tactic. You're just like,
no. I say I want to play, but then we play 3 songs, and then they say, "That's great, but here, come eat."
I'd rather watch you eat.
Come talk to me. No, they want to talk.
Yeah.
They want to like brag that they had deep conversations with a jazz musician.
I think you're lying. I think you're also a competitive eater. I think that's
for
a
sure.
lie. I think that's
for
the issue.
sure.
They're just like, look,
sure.
I really enjoy your saxophone playing, but could you come over here and like eat 6 hot dogs in front of me, or like lick this banana? Could you do that? Like,
no, I would never. I would never eat bananas in public.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Well,
does it remind you too much of synthetic wood?
Yes. You know, I don't want to. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to bring work to my private life. Yeah. So I don't eat bananas in private.
I see.
I mean, when I'm alone, I do that, you know, because that's the most fun. Right. When you do it alone, it's the most fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I understand that.
But like, other than that, I don't eat bananas in public.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, you know, to each their own.
Yeah.
You know, me, I'll just whip out a banana anytime.
It doesn't that's matter. The type of person you are. You're the.
I'll throw it on.
You're the goth type. You're a goth. You're a goth person.
I'm counterculture.
Yeah.
I'm counterculture.
You are the opposite. You will do anything with a banana in public.
Like I admit, like a lot of the music that I liked, you know, growing up, and that even I still like to this day, is like barely music. So it's definitely the antithesis of jazz.
Yeah.
It's like where jazz is like, let's stuff all the music into it. Like, you know, Sarah stuffing her face at a rich man's party. You know, we're gonna stuff all this music into it. And then the goth kids are like in the garage, and they're like, when I bang my guitar off the floor, it makes this noise. I can write a 9-minute song about that. It's just like,
yeah,
and that's the whole song.
Yeah, jazz musicians wouldn't do that. That's too art. That's because it's not elite enough. That's just.
It's not elite.
Yeah, it's not elite enough. You know what I mean?
I understand.
Yeah, but anyways, do you have another question before we because it's time?
You know, the chat has been asking. The chat has been really providing some valuable stuff. Underslop says the key. Maybe your issue is that you're not eating a banana with your hand near your face, not your face down to the banana. Have you ever tried that? Like, you know, cover.
You mean going down on the banana?
No, like he was very specific in what he said. Okay, like you raise your hand to your face, not put your face down to the banana. Have you ever tried that?
No, I always like put it somewhere like on a bench or something and then went down on it because I thought that's how you eat a banana, isn't it?
Well, maybe you should. Maybe. Yeah, that's not right. That's clearly not right. Can you also tell me what happens? Have you ever known? You know, did you play with a lot of trombonists, and did you ever deal with any of them that, you know, their trombone had become rusty? Has that ever been an issue for you?
I mean, there's patina. You know what I mean? There's not rust, but it's patina, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I understand.
You know?
I understand.
And they're always the sweetest. You know that trombone players are... You know that trombone players are always the sweetest because they never get the gigs? They're always sweet to you. They're always like, oh, I'm your best friend.
Yeah, I have a good friend that's a trombonist, so I understand. Or a tromboner, as he likes to be called.
Yeah, tromboner. Oh, nice.
Tromboner.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the good news is that the jazz doesn't end. We have another non-stop hour of jazz here on musicexposed.show. And it's starting off with our power gig with Ed Plays Jazz and a killer guitarist coming up on Music Exposed after this.
Well... Okay, well, that's our cue. Ed is already ready. Let's go. Here is Ed for you. I'm so excited. Let's go!
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. I present Mark Stitzen on the guitar. My name's Ed. We're going to play some jazz for you. We're going to start with the blues. Hit it. That was Blue Monk. That's a tune by Thelonious Monk. That's a blues head. We're next. We're going to play a bit of bossa nova for you if there are any Portuguese speakers. We're going to play a tune called Insensatez, and I'm going to switch to the flute. Would you like to set me up with a little groove?
Insensatez que você fez, coração, mas sem cuidado, fez chorar de dor. Oh meu amor, um amor tão delicado. Você foi fraco assim, assim tal desamado. Ah, meu coração, que nunca amou, não merece ser amado. Meu coração, ou é ver razão, usa só sinceridade que se me inventou. Diz a razão, colhe sempre tempestade. Vai coração pede pedal, pedal apaixonado. Vai, por que que não? Pede pedal, não é nunca perdoado.
was insensatez. I started learning Portuguese a little bit through the lyrics of bossa nova tunes, because if you know what the actual translations are, you can't listen to bossa nova in English. You can't do it. It just doesn't work.
That was awesome. That was awesome. That was really great. Thank you so much, Ed, for that awesome performance. Very jazzy. Very jazzy. Did you know those songs, Silence?
No.
You didn't?
No.
You didn't know those? Really? Shut up. I'm sure you know those songs. You have people in your family. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Silence's family are jazz people. Silence has jazz people.
Two of them.
Yeah.
Well, two of them are, and then most of them were classical musicians.
Oh, but you have jazz musicians in your family.
Yes, I have a relative who's actually a jazz instructor. And
so you've never heard that?
I'm sure I've heard them, but I didn't pay attention to them.
That's why you don't like jazz.
That isn't true.
You just traumatized. Is that the truth?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Are you just traumatized in reality?
I wouldn't even say that I didn't like what I heard there. I don't think that at all.
Yeah.
I liked the SpongeBob song once.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
I mean, I didn't say that. I didn't. Why you got to call me out like that? I didn't come out and be like, you know what? EdPlaysJazz sucked. I didn't say that.
What?
I thought it was great.
No, I didn't say that. I asked you if you knew those songs.
Why you got to accuse me?
I asked you if you knew those songs.
Fine. You know what? I'll do a challenge with you, and I'll play a bunch of obscure music and be like, do you know this? Do you know this? Do you know this?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. Stop being a little bitch.
I can't help it. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a little bitch.
Angry beta male. Yeah, that's me.
Ouch.
True. I'm sorry. Wow, you don't gotta roast me like that. Wow. Okay. Well, fuck.
I roasted you. That's totally
no. I'm saying like, rising and observe.
How do you not know these songs? You have jazz musicians in your family. How have you not absorbed their brain into your brain?
Yeah, that's a thing, right?
Why do you know that?
Oh, shut up. Okay, while we wait for Ed to come over and
jazz is way over here. The jazzy jazz.
Do the thing.
The bulletin board.
Yeah.
The Music Exposed bulletin board.
That's what we're going to do now. We're going to do the Music Exposed bulletin board. So here you go. Hit the jingle. Let's go.
Hit it.
Open up your arms to the music scene. The future's in your ears and you just won't believe. You just won't believe.
Okay, you're on. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So for the Music Exposed bulletin board for this week, we got some spicy jams this week coming in from Delver. Delver will be on the show in the next couple of weeks. They are an amazing electronic rock duo. They do all sorts of kind of different genres of music, and I feel like they're one of the really too well kept secrets on Twitch, because they have an incredible stream and they play a lot of amazing music. So if you're not familiar with Delver, they just released a new song this week called Dissolve. All of the songs on the bulletin board for this week are already up at musicexposed.show, so you can listen to them now or you can listen to them after the show. But check out that new single from Delver. It just dropped, I believe, on Friday. It's called Dissolve. I also have learned this week that apparently the Music Exposed, to dissolve, just remove some vowels and some consonants and there you get Delver. And then on top of it, since the Music Exposed bulletin board has apparently just become the Moonlight Social board because they have yet another release this week. And I'm like, good Lord, I think they're just releasing an entire album over the course of like weeks over weeks or whatever they're doing. But Moonlight Social just dropped another new single called Ever After. So they have been dropping singles. They basically have been keeping the Music Exposed bulletin board in business the last couple of weeks. So they got another new great one to check out. They're also another super fun stream. I think we rated them a couple weeks back. So for any of you that don't follow Moonlight Social, you should definitely check them out. And then finally, from the Fantastic Plastics, our friends over there, they just dropped a pre-order release of their album Malfunction, but it's almost got that Delver spelling. Take all of the vowels out of it. It's MLFNCTN. It is a remix album done by one of their big fans and one of their big members in the chat, Chicken Burger Disco. So it is a remix of most, if not all, of the songs off their recent Malfunction album. And you can pre-order that now over at their Bandcamp at thefantasticplastics.bandcamp.com. So no releases from Delver, new release from Moonlight Social, and a pre-order release for Fantastic Plastics. Oh, I have one more thing. I announced this last week, but just as a reminder, the Summer Streams fundraiser kicks off on July 14th, which is coming up this Tuesday. It'll be Tuesday through Thursday. I did announce this last week, but it is 18 women that inspire in the arts here on Twitch. And there'll be some special giveaways. There'll be fundraising for the Broadcast Her grant and a lot of those things for the 1,000 Dreams Fund. So lots of extremely talented female artists and musicians will be featured on that. If you want to know more about that, just give a follow to either Richie, R-I-C-H-I-I, or Christy Cates on Twitch or Twitter to find out more about that. And that is your Music Exposed bulletin board.
Awesome! Yay! Okay, and now Ed is ready. Thank you so much for that raid, Ed. I really appreciate it. And now we're going to start the interview. And here is EdPlaysJazz.
Yeah. Hello. How are you guys?
Your mic is super low.
My mic is super low. Hold on a second.
Yeah, can you turn it up, please?
Yeah. Turn up your volume.
Turn up the volume.
Check 1, 2. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Check 1, 2, 3.
Seems better now.
Hello.
Cool.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Thank you for having us on the show.
We're so good. We've just been noodling for that first hour.
Yeah. Can you tell us who you are? Tell the audience who you are, what you do, and what your channel is all about.
So my name is Ed. I'm a jazz musician in London. I like playing jazz. I like playing Afrobeat. I like playing with people, but I like more than anything else getting musicians paid to play music because then they get a chance to actually spend their time on it.
That's a novel concept. Musicians getting paid for music. I mean,
I know, it's crazy, right? Yeah. So the first night I ever organized, I was promoting for years in London, trying to put on nights. My first night was called Bands Get Paid. And it was revolutionary because I'd been gigging on the London scene by that point for about 4 years. And there were just pay to play gigs everywhere where you have to guarantee X amount of tickets sold. Basically, it ends up your mates paying the promoters. So yeah, not fun.
Yeah, nice.
It's crazy.
Nice. Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
That was nice. You started off with 2 standards, so I'm gonna go right into the first question. Yeah. Do you have any originals? Do you write songs?
Yeah, actually, that was the third one we were doing. We were building some Afrobeat for you. But it took a bit longer. We
weren't listening to that because we had.
Okay. Well, if anyone, no, I write original Afrobeat, which is like Nigerian jazz.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to do 3 songs.
Okay, all right, no problem. That's okay.
Yeah, but you do write songs, right?
I do, yeah, absolutely. I'm not much of I don't really write lyrics so much songs. I write arrangements. I'm a composer. I'm like an arranger and composer. So I write grooves. I write multiple guitar parts, bass lines, horn lines, and I direct bands on stage. So that's kind of what I do. I'm into live performance. I don't really like the idea that anything is ever finished. So I'm rubbish at recording things.
Right.
Yeah.
Finished cuts.
So
it's kind of, I know it's kind of a generic question a little bit, but tell me a little bit, how did you get into jazz and what drew you to jazz in particular over other forms of music? Or have you played a lot of other forms of music?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well?
I was actually, I went to an American school in Indonesia when I was young.
Oh, wow.
So I had a band class and they gave me a tenor saxophone in school. And I was just I was just like amazed because we then had a band class that was like 3 times a week for 2 hours at a time, just playing as an orchestra in the school. And that was just like, that was awesome. But it never really, like, I never had anyone outside of school to play with. None of my family really played. I didn't really practice because I didn't know like what practice was, that you literally just sit there for 3 hours playing your instrument, trying to get better.
Yeah.
Because you never saw anyone doing that, you know. So that's one of the other things I try to do on my channel. I try to show people the process of learning these stupid instruments.
Stupid instruments.
They're all ridiculous. Like I had a lesson the other day with an 8-year-old teacher to play trombone. And to play trombone, you basically just meow and go, meow. So, you know, I'm getting paid decent money to jump up and down meowing and going with 8-year-olds. Yeah. So it's best job.
Yeah, that sounds good. What genres, I mean, obviously jazz, but what artists influenced you the most to do what you're doing currently? I mean, I guess you have a lot because you play so many instruments.
Kind of. There tends to be like one specific, like I'll hear I tended to take up instruments for one of two reasons. Either because I got asked if I taught it and I'd be like, yes, but I'm busy for 2 weeks, and then just frantically practice for the 2 weeks. Because, you know, a 7-year-old who's just picking up an instrument, like if you can play a tune on it, you can help them play a tune on it.
Sure.
But Fela Kuti was the big influence that kind of changed my life. I was interested in dub reggae. I was interested in kind of folk and psychedelic jazz and funk. So like Tower of Power, George Benson is kind of on the funky side of jazz.
Yeah.
But then I heard Fela Kuti and Tony Allen and the Africa 70, and they invented this Afrobeat genre, and it like brought everything I like together. It had huge horn sections and groovy rhythms and loads of percussion and like killer lines and loads of solos and a political message, and just like, I was like, that's amazing. This is amazing. I need to do this. And then I kind of did nothing else for the next 3 years. So.
Oh.
That's amazing. So you've mentioned a couple of times that you teach. So do you have any kind of, I think a lot of, you know, I grew up in a family of music teachers. I still have a family member that teaches master's and doctorate level jazz. So one of my favorite things that I would ask them, or that they would talk about all the time, are funny stories related to either music lessons or teaching music. So what's a good funny story, or a good story of something interesting that's happened to you in a lesson? I'm sure you've got loads of them. So feel free to tell a few.
So I used to work. I'll tell you two. Okay. One at the beginning of my time at this school, and one that marked kind of the end of my time at this school. And one's kind of funny. The other's a little bit sad. They're both a bit sad, but they're kind of funny. So I used to work with a music service in East London called Newer Music. And what they do is they send in teachers to schools to deliver music lessons. And the schools will say, hey, we want music lessons. Can you send teachers around? And then the schools would then have to actually do the things they needed to do to make the music lessons happen.
Of course.
There's a big gap between wanting to have music lessons in your school and actually having music lessons at the school, including, you know, classrooms. At one school, it took them 3 months to get saxophones for the kids. And in that period, they didn't actually have a classroom for me. So I was teaching 6 kids at a time how to play this air saxophone sitting in a corridor by a fire escape for 3 months. And each week I was like, so do they have instruments yet? And they're like, oh, no, you'll be able to make do, right? I'm like, okay, yeah. Do we have a classroom yet? No, the teachers need to use it for conference. You'll be able to make do, right? It's like, okay, yes, half an hour, 7-year-olds, no instruments, no classroom. Yeah, well, fuck it, why not? So yeah, the final thing at that school, which was the kind of other thing that actually made me realize I couldn't teach in schools anymore. It's on the same theme of kind of expectations versus reality, right? So we were supposed to have 8 music sessions in the end of the term. They cancelled 6 of them, still demanded a concert. And in the last lesson, the teacher stood up and said to the kids, now kids, make sure you do lots of practice because you don't want to play a wrong note at the concert and look stupid in front of everyone. And I had to like stand up and flat out contradict what their teacher was telling them. And I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, there you are, some teaching stories.
Oh my God.
So
I think Sarah's having a stroke over there.
Yeah.
She's like,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, dodged a bullet.
I never really taught. So, thankfully, I never had to do that. So, I'm happy I don't have those stories. But
I hear it's a lot better in Europe. So it's pretty uniquely bad in the UK.
I think it's bad everywhere, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely bad here too.
Yeah, many of my
Does that make me feel better? I don't know.
No, it shouldn't. It should not.
It shouldn't.
Absolutely
It shouldn't
not.
make anybody feel better, to be honest. But it's it's a lot. It's a lot. But in every country, I think it's just teaching music or music in general is just not. It's not treated the way it should be treated, as you know that yourself. So you play so many instruments. Yeah. What would you say is your favorite, or the one that you you identify with the most? I would say the saxophone, but maybe your answer is different, actually.
I kind of have a long and troubled history with my saxophone. It's kind of the longest relationship I've ever been in. It's cost me a huge amount of money, and it still makes me feel like shit on a daily basis. So my sax has some like leaky problems or manufacturing problems, which means certain parts of its range are just not accessible. I just can't play smoothly. So it's always a bit hesitant, like going into it, until I can manage to sink in and just like listen and just breathe. But I'd say probably the violin, when everything I've been playing violin for about 4 years now, and it's like just starting to sink in, and I have those moments where I can just stop thinking and it's like playing itself and I'm just listening to what I'm playing. And there's something about the whole body nature, like you're getting into it, you're moving here, your muscles down to your legs, the bow, it's just like it's incredible, indescribable.
Okay.
So I'd hope that would become like, so I hope I can find the security.
I like without knowing, Ed wandered into our saxophone versus violin debate here on the show.
Very true.
I just enjoyed it.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh my God, if you haven't heard, which episode was that?
2-1.
2 episodes ago, right? Was it on Alice's or on Bort's? I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I can't remember, but like a few episodes ago, we had that. We had that. What is better,
saxophone
solo
versus violin debate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, of course, you got to have debates about everything. Otherwise,
obviously,
it's not a music show.
But before we go into that, Bardic Gifts was asking about that bass. Tell us about that bass, because it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, sure.
Cool instrument.
I absolutely fell in love with the sound of an upright bass, because I don't know if are you getting it through there?
Yeah,
we are.
So I mentioned before that on each instrument there's like a tune or a song that I hear that just like mesmerizes me and shows me what kind of sounds it's possible to make, and I just be like, I have to be able to make those noises. Like I need to make those noises. And there's a particular performance by a bassist called Dave Holland, which is like a solo upright bass performance, and I saw it. And I was like, I have to do this. So I tried for years to get my hands on various upright basses. They're super expensive, or they basically hurt your fingers. Bass is kind of weird, because if the action's too high, the strength you have to use to make them is actually dangerous to do. So I went through a couple of basses, and I needed bassists all the time for gigs. I was like, maybe if I spend 6 months, I'll get to the point where I can kind of walk through a gig. And I eventually got a bass, did the practice, shredded all the skin off my fingers for practicing it every day for 3 months. Did it, and it was absolutely awful. I couldn't hold the tune. It wouldn't hold the tune. It wouldn't project. It wouldn't anything. So I got this. I did some research. This is an electric upright bass, so it has no body. It was much cheaper. It's made of Honduran mahogany. It's made by a guy called Jesse on Gun Barrel Lane in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this is the answer. If you can't afford like a big fancy bass, or you can't carry, or you don't have the room, you can get just a stick. And
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah,
and it sounds great. It sounded great on the stream.
Yeah, it did. Sure. It sounds like a contrabass. I did not. It sounds good.
Thank you. It's been one of my aspirations for a while to do Afrobeat with an upright bass, because Afrobeat tends to be with electric bass. So I was really digging the sound of that. So I'm glad it sounds good. It's great fun. It's the same tuning as an electric bass. So if there are any bassists on the stream, if you want to take upright bass, you have to figure out the fretless nature, but you don't have to relearn where all the notes are and stuff. So which is very cool.
So obviously you just mentioned that you obviously played a lot of live gigs, and obviously that's kind of a cornerstone of jazz. So what was it like to transition into Twitch, and what do you think is really different about Twitch compared to that live gig experience for you?
That's an interesting question. I suppose it comes from two directions. The biggest difference is I'd say is just having the space to play. You know, having a space where you can live stream a full band is really, really hard to figure out. It's something we've been trying to figure out for 6 or 7 years in London. We have been through several rounds of having premises, and just being able to get a space that will fit all of you in this city is an absolute nightmare. And that, I think Twitch would be a lot more accessible. Like, I've been trying to get musicians in London in the jazz scene to take it seriously and to talk about Twitch and talk about live streaming for ages, and people don't really seem to be that hip to it. But I think it's partly because for real jazz you can do one person, you know, a pianist singing or a guitarist, they can do solo jazz, but me as a horn player, like, I need people to play with. It's only after a year and a half here that we've managed to cram another person in. So I think actually, if people had the room to play, then jazz would come to Twitch, you know, and it would be very similar to gigs, I think. It's a different scene, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is actually
you don't have to have the dickheads involved.
There is actually a saloon. I mean, they do country, but they record the full band. But obviously, it's a saloon, so you know they already have the space. But there is since a few days, there's already a channel that basically records all the bands that they have. It's called Rattlesnake TV, by the way. I used to work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to check them out.
Yeah, I used to work with their house band, and I used to be a full member. But they are also turning to Twitch now, like a venue, you know, a saloon, a place, a bar where people have live music are also turning to Twitch now, which is amazing. And
the longer this goes, the longer the COVID thing goes on, the more I think you're going to see that happen.
Yeah.
Especially since you have so many of the, what a lot of people don't think about with the COVID situation is professionals that are related to music that aren't the musicians. You know, your lighting technicians and your sound technicians, and obviously my sister is in the industry as well, and so anything that I think can do that is obviously helpful, because then you have both the space and you're helping those people work too, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was only a matter of time, you know. Same with the kind of the idea that a new kind of streaming platform, a record label with non-copyright restriction has come out of the DMCA thing. What's happening here, like this live interaction between artists. I don't really consider myself an artist. Like I consider myself more a craftsman, but people call me artist, so whatever. The interaction between artist and fan directly, and the ability to have the money they pay go directly to the artist, which is really transformational, you know, because the thing, and I think quite a lot, I can't have a background in economic anthropology, so I think quite a lot about how economic systems like change the way of interactions, and the music industry is a prime example of that. What kind of music is being supported by this industry, and what kind of music is being left behind? And I'd say arguably it's the large band stuff that's kind of left behind, because, you know, you need more people to pay. It takes more admin. And also that means you have a whole band who are in a position, you know, to help each other and not be exploited by the industry. It's a lot easier to exploit a single artist, especially if they're young, especially if they're, you know, very excited. It's a lot harder to exploit a group of people who are working together as a collective. True. And that scares big business, right? And I think it was only a matter of time until Twitch, what we're doing on here, kind of started to make those outroads and start colonizing the real world music industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Absolutely.
So you have this big, you always had from the beginning, from the start, from the moment that I met you and went into your stream, because I think I found you on Twitter actually, where you commented on Andy Boeing's one of his tweets, and I found you, and you were talking about saxophone, and I was like, oh, there's another person doing jazz on Twitch. Like, and I went into your stream the moment the next moment you were streaming, and I found that very interesting because I thought I was one of the only people on doing or like jazz musicians. I mean, I don't do a lot of jazz on Twitch, but one of the few jazz musicians on Twitch. How well do you think the jazz community is represented on Twitch, or do you think it's represented at all?
I mean, in terms, well, I mean, there are so many different like categories of jazz. It's kind of hard to put them all together. Like in terms of traditional, like standard-based jazz, the kind of jazz that you would see at a jam session where people, learn standards and play with each other. Not much, except when it's done by individuals. And this is like coming back to the point we made earlier, right? You can't have a jazz jam session with one person. So to have that kind of presence, it would need to be what I'm trying to create here. I'm trying to get my bed out. I'm trying to move in with Mark and turn this into a place where we can stream like a full jazz band and have regular things. It's not really there. There's some jazzy stuff. There's people who play some jazz, but there's no regular like full band jazz, either trad or, I mean, I could be wrong if there's like any gypsy jazz going or like Afro jazz or jazz hop or all these kind of things. I mean, there's such a long tradition. There's definitely jazz happening. It's just harder to get together with other musicians and do it. And you can't really do it like as we do collabs on Twitch where one person streams over another, because that means you lose out on what makes it jazz, which is the musicians listening to each other and bouncing off each other. So I think it's hard, but I think it's definitely going to happen, Yeah. At least I'm gonna try and make it happen.
So what are sorry? Go ahead. What are your plans? You always had this big, you already touched on it. This big, this big dream, and you want to have musicians paid. How do you? It's a big ambitious plan, and it's awesome and honorable. But you know how it is. You know how the world is. Practically, it's probably not going to happen that all musicians are going to get paid well. And how do you want to change your channel or continue your channel, or what is the future of your channel, and how does that relate to the whole to your goal? As a musician in London, or or on Twitch as a jazz musician?
Yeah, for sure. Big question. Kind of ties a lot of threads together in my life and my music. So the Afrobeat I write is inherently political. I believe music is inherently political. It's like a reflection of the people who make it. It's a reflection of what they've experienced, and even whether it can be played, whether they are able to get the necessary people together to play this kind of music is like a political thing, because it's about whether people can afford to. I've always wanted to try and put money in the pockets of musicians as the prime goal of the project I do. I believe that is how you get good music. You properly reward people for their time. You give them the opportunity to work on it, to develop it, and you recognize that what they have done and what they have dedicated their life to is worth it. They have not wasted their time. And this is the problem with the music industry, that it kind of makes you think that if you can't earn enough money to survive, you're therefore not good enough. If only I was good enough, then I'd be able to earn a living. And that's so backwards. So we have this situation where there's no way to get in. To even get into the industry, you already have to be making loads of money. To make loads of money, you have to be promoted by the industry, barring, people going viral and amazing people, which you see on Twitch, right? You see people without industry support, amazing musicians, being able to develop and support themselves. I suppose the only difference is the kind of music I want to write takes 13 people. Right. And if I have to play Afrobeat, like if my idol Fela Kuti and Tony Allen, the music was the music it was because they had all of those people playing and rehearsing every day for years, right? He toured the US before they'd even figured out the kind of sound they wanted to make with the Kula Labitos. So my objective is to create an income locally for basically, a good idea to start is for 13 people. If 13 people can make a living, enough to live on by playing music and by teaching in their local community, then I will have my Afrobeat band. And I believe that will create the content that will then expand the idea and get more people into it. And then hopefully expand to 2 bands, 3 bands, 4 bands, you know.
Yeah.
The idea that you move into an area and there's a local music service where they're playing at the pub and they're playing in the park, and you can get lessons from them. And it's just, you know, everyone's learning each other and the community and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the way that Twitch is structured right now for people to get paid and musicians and streamers to get paid is a barrier to that? Or do you think that there is some way with the existing system that you could work towards that goal? Or what do you think might need to change?
I think it works quite well. Perhaps not Twitch by itself, but obviously a lot of people have a Patreon attached to it.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, you're getting all the bits, and people are paying an extra 10%. You get all the donations, and you get 50% of the subs. Now, a record deal where you got 50% of the money and the label got 50% of the money, that would be a really, really, really good deal.
Yeah,
so exactly. I see it as a really solid platform for these things to kind of develop. But I feel that for them to kind of to like coalesce and become strong, they need to have like real world connections.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 100%.
So, like, for example, there are quite a lot of other UK-based streamers. If we could somehow get a way where we had a pub and each Friday night we were to stream a live show of UK streamers, that would, you know, strengthen everyone's communities and bring more people onto Twitch. I think that's the big thing that could change, is if Twitch had more visibility out in the general world, you know?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the ambition that we had with the show as well, is to say, you know, obviously it's really difficult to do, you know, there are ways that you can obviously bring multiple streamers together and do multiple musicians together, but at the same time, you know, the format does present some challenges for that, and the technology presents some challenges for that right now. But I think that's the same idea here. Is we saw an opportunity, I think, similar to what you see, where it's, you know, give a platform to, you know, the largest musicians and the smallest musicians, because you're exactly right. That's how the traditional scene works. If you're going on tour, you go on tour with a band that's more popular and more known, and they bring a lesser known band, and then that band starts to grow, and then they pass that on to the next generation. It's really difficult to do that. I think that's the biggest thing missing from Twitch, honestly.
Although, I mean, you have people raiding each other, but
yeah, absolutely, which that definitely helps.
Yeah,
but as you said, it's not. That it's something of an endorsement, but it's not the same as sharing the stage. And if you go to a gig, sure, you know, it's possible if you go to a gig to skip the opening band or not show up, but a higher percentage of people are not going to do that. They're going to show up at showtime, they're going to watch the opener, and then they're going to watch the act that they came for. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that definitely is not really in the Twitch tech sphere at this point.
Yeah, so
I agree. I'm just skipping the opening band.
Let's talk a little bit Twitch streams, your personal streams. So, are there any? What is the most outrageous request you have gotten outside or inside of Twitch? You know, from it doesn't necessarily have to do with music.
Outrageous request.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have.
Request.
You know, just maybe even offensive or rude. You know, for example, I get dick pics. What's your thing?
I don't get any requests for dick pics. Honestly, I'm quite. I just absolve myself of most responsibility in these situations. I say I'm just the sax player. I have friends who've been licked at gigs though.
What?
I have a friend who used to play piano in the lounge at the Ritz, and this lady came up and started licking his face.
Oh my god!
What?
He was playing piano, and she kind of got quite close, and then she just gave him a little lick in the ear. You know?
No, that's disgusting.
Yeah. That hasn't happened to me. You know, I haven't been licked while performing, except potentially by bandmates. I'm sure that's happened one time. I've been in some funk bands which have gotten pretty crazy.
Oh, so funk bands lick each other? Is that what you're saying?
That's good. It's good to know.
You kidding? Funk bands do most things to each other, I would say.
I thought it was more like, you know, reggae and Latino bands.
Reggae.
But yeah. So, yeah.
Anyone where there's sweaty and drinks being thrown everywhere and people jumping up and down.
Yeah.
What's the most outrageous request I've had? I don't know. You know, trying to teach kids in a corridor for 3 months without saxophones. That was a pretty outrageous request. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's true. Do you have any stuff? Do you have any songs that you kind of have either retired from your stream or you're kind of sick of playing on stream? Are you a person that you can just go with the flow and you'll play anything as many times? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, actually, I had like for the first sort of 6 months or 8 months of streaming, I was streaming with a mind to getting the funds together to pay a group of musicians, enough to play. And I was writing, to be honest, all of the music that I wrote and was playing by myself for months and months. I just lost patience with it. So yeah, it happens all the time. Stuff I write for other people to play, if I'm forever playing them, forever listening to things that I've recorded, just drives me nuts. It'll be great for a time, and then just like boom, all of a sudden it's like, wow, fuck this.
Yeah,
can't be bothered.
Same.
Bored of this. What's this stupid? Yeah. These bass lines are stupid. All your bass lines are the same. Ed. Write something new, and then I just like sit there for half an hour trying to write something new.
Yeah. So
it happens.
What is one of the things? I'm sure there is something that bothers you about streaming. What is one of the things that bothers you most about streaming?
One of the things that bothers me most about streaming. I have to watch myself here. It's not. It doesn't bother me as such, but I think it's like a combination of two worlds. Like the memes don't help music that well. Memes make a good stream, but they don't like. They're not. I don't know. There seems to be like two different audiences, and sometimes because obviously I've been experimenting with different things, and we try lots of different things when we're streaming, and we try these things, and we try those things, and there seems to be like this some tension between. I don't know, I would just call it like the meme community and the music community. And sometimes it resolves nice, and there's like happiness, happy meme musicness. And then sometimes like it just doesn't work at all. People try to troll you by being overly memey, and it's like, I don't know, there seem to be several different worlds all squished together in this pot, and they work well together, but then sometimes they just like bubble, and there's just like pressure, and it all gets a bit weird, I suppose.
I 100% agree with that, actually, and I'm kind of a meme musician.
Yeah, so I'm also a meme musician. That's interesting because you're talking to two meme musicians here.
Oh, and I've been meme as well. Yeah. I was quoting Undertale all over the place. But the clip I sent you. So, for example, getting requested to build the Fortnite loop.
Oh yeah, should we watch that? Should we watch that right now?
Head to the Zony.
Yeah.
To the Zony.
Let's go to the Zony. Where are we?
In the early days when I did every request that I got.
Let's go.
I can't hear it. What should I do?
There we go. Nice. Okay. So
it's not something that really annoys me about Twitch.
Yeah.
It's just like a contradiction that I've been.
So you think sometimes music is not treated as serious as it should be treated?
I don't think it has the opportunity to be really. I'd be interested to see how more like shows go. Okay, so for a good example, there are a couple of people who stream who aren't affiliate because they stream to multiple places,
Sure.
And they get almost no traction on the Twitch portion of their stream because as soon as you see someone talking to a chat that isn't Twitch chat, right, it's like, oh, they're somewhere else, they're doing something else. So it's not that it's necessarily a problem, but there seems to be a lot more room for like well put together music shows that are not like, I don't know, I'm not expressing myself very well. I would like to see more gigs being streamed ultimately, I think.
Oh yeah. There are bands like Livy in the Middle and Vari. Who else? There's like a lot of bands. There's a lot of bands on Twitch actually who take their music very seriously. I think there is a very serious community on Twitch, actually. And maybe you're right. There is maybe a difference between the serious people and the meme people, I guess. We always call it, I guess, the clan, the music community clan or something.
Yeah.
They're like a very...
I don't call it a clan.
What do we call it? I don't know. What do we call it? A cult? No, not a cult. It's like a tight-knit group, you know. They take...
I don't know. I kind of agree with Ed. I don't agree with that at all. I feel like most of the majority, there's obviously the regulars and people that hang out and understand the humor, but I actually feel like the majority of more casual viewers that drop into my stream and are hanging out are totally what Ed described, either memeing or dropping lame ass requests, or like just in general having no respect for, like, all right, we're putting on a show here and I'm playing, especially I'm playing 99% original music. And yes, I have a sense of humor and I like to entertain and I like to do that. But I also, I've worried about that since the time I started, and feeling like, I also worry that because that's my personality in real life. If you met me on the street, I'd be making dumb jokes and I'd be doing that. That's me. But I also, me is the person that writes the music and takes it seriously and does those things. And I certainly want it to be respected. Yes, exactly. If you follow me, you should unfollow me right now.
Yeah,
for that
but
comment.
that's the problem. What I think we talked about this last week. That's the problem with people wanting to put everybody in a box, or in a niche. Like, you can't do serious music and be meme at the same time for people to understand the seriousness of the music or the trolliness of the jokes. You kind of have to become one or another, if that makes sense. Like, I for example, I used to be a very, 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 serious musician. I don't take it that seriously anymore because, I've gone places and I kind of had my achievements as a musician, so I don't mind. But I don't mind that people don't take me seriously in general, because I'm a very meme person. But I prefer I prefer the things how they are now, because I don't have the ambition to be that serious as a musician anymore, because I already achieved what I wanted to achieve, if that makes any sense. But I can understand how that is a problem when you still want to be very serious about your stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, a part of me wants to say that this is just a projection of my own insecurities as to what kind of content I should do. But I'm kind of trying to think about it more. And something that brings to mind is that at any given time, Twitch Music has something like 45,000 viewers ish, and which is a lot more than it was before. We got our tab. But that compared to the number of music consumers who there are in the world who would enjoy live interactive music, I don't understand why more people aren't aware of it. What is it going to take for it to become a standard way of consuming music, of listening to bands?
I think it's.
I agree.
I think it's because people just hear what they want to hear. Basically, they go on YouTube or go on Spotify or go on iTunes or whatever. They listen to what they want to hear. I mean, I'm that myself. I don't really request on music streams because, if I watch a music stream, I watch it because of the person, not really because of the music. I will listen to maybe a song or two, but I don't really listen to the music, because if I want to listen to the music, even their originals, I will go on YouTube at any or at their Spotify or whatever at any given time of day. And I think a lot of people are like that too, because they just want to consume it at any given time that they feel like it and that they want, and not. It's the same thing why people stopped going to concerts, really, because nowadays you just have it all. You don't have to go to a concert to listen to music. Or put on a cassette or a CD or an EP or whatever. You have it at the point of your fingertips. You know what I mean? So
I don't know though, but I think that's that's one perspective. But another perspective, which is my perspective as well, is like, you're not going to a concert just to hear the songs performed as if it were a jukebox playing those songs. You're going to relate to the musicians and to hear what they're doing in that, and to see their personalities and how they act on stage. And like, for me, that's because I agree with you. I've admitted this before. It's like, I don't like a lot of the music personally that I hear on Twitch Music, but I love the personalities behind it. I get so sick of hearing some of the same covers over and over and over again. I never want to hear anyone do Radiohead's Creep ever again. I never want to hear anyone do Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah ever again. Like, I don't ever want to hear that. But I support the people and their personalities who do that. You know, and it's the same for me going to a gig. Like, if I mean, I'll be honest, like, even today it was really cool for me to see Ed play. I had almost like, I've caught your stream a couple times in lurking or when we've been over there, but I feel like I got a really good feel for your personality and your technique, obviously, as a musician. And I really enjoyed that. I really did.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very glad. I'll play some Afrobeat for you sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I will definitely drop by more. I will.
Cool.
Yeah, no, Ed is awesome. I really enjoy him, and I do like the Afrobeat stuff. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, it's just difficult because you still have that one. I mean, Ed, you don't call yourself an artist, but you're still an artist. You know, you craft, but you're also an artist. You're both, I guess. But you know, you're still an artist.
I guess.
You know, you're both.
It's the Welsh. It's my mum inside me. We're not artists. What are you talking about?
Yeah, don't be so humble. You're an artist and a craftsman. Okay, just live with it. Okay, and shut the fuck up about that. Listen. But I think it's also the same thing, like, especially music streamers, and why I, for example, I do variety, because I see how people get bored. You know, you can't watch every day the same artist. Like, especially in music, because, you know, even if their repertoire is very big, they have their own style and everything, and you might love that for a while, but then you don't listen to, I don't know, Linkin Park every single fucking day for the rest of your life, you know? At some point, you're like, oh, I want to watch something else. I want to listen to something else.
I don't listen to Linkin Park ever.
Well, you're wrong in that then, because Linkin Park is amazing.
Linkin Park for a while, I have to say.
Yeah, Linkin Park is amazing. Yeah, but you know, that's the thing. So it's kind of a problem of one content only, if that makes sense. One content streams. It works sometimes, and it works especially, obviously, for games, because that also appeals to a younger audience. But when it's music and it's more mature music, if that makes sense, you know, not music that you just listen to on the go or whatever, but music that has meaning, like you know, like any jazz, you know, has meaning, but also what Silence does is has a lot of meaning. His songs they're not just songs on the go, like I don't know, what are songs that are just on the go where it's like 2 words and that's it, you know? There are like a ton of them on the radio, and those you don't really have to think about. But your songs have a meaning. It have a story behind it, and that's great. But people also get tired of that. You know what I mean? Because it's also something for younger, not for younger people, because they don't really understand, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of layers, I guess, to why music isn't that great on Twitch, or you know, even though we have a tab.
Don't put words in my mouth, man. I didn't say it. It was great.
No, I mean, great in terms of numbers, you know. I mean, in terms of numbers, obviously.
I just wish, you know, there are like streamers I see that I wish I could go down the end of my road to the pub, get a beer, sit down and just listen, you know? Yeah. And then maybe come up and talk to them. And I was just thinking when you were talking about that, actually, like the difference between, this is something I've always felt very strongly about, you know, the difference between going to a 3,000 ticket concert where everyone's paid for a ticket, and the difference between just having like music just happening around you, you know, in your area, or live gigs. And in a way, I think that the Twitch streams are much more what it used to be. It's a much more interactive way of delivering music to people, you know, and the music is created in part by the audience. That's something that I've always felt very strongly. I've always tried to play the backstreet pubs where the people are right in front of you, you know. You can smell them, you can see them. If they take a step forward, sometimes they grab the mic and sing some words with you, which is just a phenomenal feeling of just like participating in the music. And the people you meet at these kind of events, like, it's like really strong feelings, like strong emotions, a strong sense of belonging, a sense of like of togetherness, a sense of power, which I think is hard to get these days. So that's why I've been trying. One of the reasons I've been trying to get community music happening. It's a very empowering thing.
That makes sense.
People who make music and the people who see the music. So
I have a question,
which is what I see on Twitch.
I have a question.
Overtime.
We're going
It's
overtime. I know
question.
it's overtime question, but this question really interests me. So, as a trained jazz musician, right? How would you describe this is one of the drama questions. Please answer honestly. How would you describe the overall skill of the music community in general? How would you describe the skill, the technique, and as a jazz musician,
Dude, the Twitch music communities, it's incredible. You're seeing levels of mastery on instruments and of voice that you just don't see out in the real world anymore because people don't get it. Genuinely, I mean, it's not to say that there's not a varying level of ability, but you see people who do it day in, day out for a year, for 2 years, and they go from like a shaky performer to fully in control of their voice, sounding beautiful, have got their dream instrument, have been killing it 4 nights a week. No, I'm blown away by it, man. I think it's something so special that people are supporting musicians to develop their craft in the way that they do on Twitch, and it just blows me away.
It is amazing.
Agree.
Yeah, there's
and I think it has to be taken as like a social phenomenon when you have like so many people able to make a living through performing music. That has implications on like a much more like a wider scale than just individuals. So anyway, sorry, continue.
Totally agree. I love that response. I 100% agree.
Wow, the goth person loves that answer. I love it.
No, well, I agree that it's hard not to get better when you have a lot of musicians who are out here playing 4 or 5 nights a week. Yeah. For me, what I wish, and I've said again, I'm just honest about it, and maybe this is similar to Ed. I would like there to be more community, and like real community, not like, all right, the people that have the biggest audiences control the community and get to decide what gets seen or not. That's not community. That's just clicks. Which I would love to see more actual community, like you said, ability for musicians to meet and network. And I would love to see more personalized stuff. Like I said, I understand being in a cover band and doing cover gigs makes you money. I get it. And I feel like that's probably why, 80 to 90% of the musicians play what they play on Twitch, because they realize I'm going to get subs, I'm going to get tips, I'm going to keep my audience. And I would love to see more people take risks and play more originals and try to, it's why I tried to do that myself, where it's like construct a show around it and try to build a unique community and that's focused on themselves and their values. And again, it's not putting down their musicianship, and some people just want to be cover artists. That's what they want to do, and that's fine too. I just would love to see more of like an indie music scene arise of all these indie musicians in all sorts of different genres that have, their own voice and something cool to say, with their original stuff.
I agree.
Well, I've been trying for many years, and what I'm fundamentally trying to do is provide a platform for musicians of underground musicians in London to reach audiences and to make income. So I will hopefully be able to host a variety of bands in the space here once we make a bit of more room. But I see what you're saying, and I think the biggest thing is not being able to play together. There's only a limited you can grow as yourself, in a constant cycle of feedback with yourself. It can make you go crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So to have the opportunity to play with other people, like even covers, like a cover played by 4 unique individual musicians, each bringing a new thing to it. So like I've heard some incredible covers of different instrumentation by cellos. Oh, El the violinist did a looped violin pizzicato cover of, I can't remember, it was something, but I was seeing this music interpreted in new ways that I hadn't thought of before. And I think there's that's ultimately jazz, right? It's the same source material.
Yeah, that's true.
Reinterpreted.
Yeah, I do agree. There's some, that's true. Like there's some artists on Twitch that don't just cover a song, but interpret it in a completely different way. And that also entails and goes into what you're saying, being more original and being more, having your own thing. And even covers can be done in a very in a very unique and personal way. You know, you can funk something up or rock something up or just do it in completely unexpected instruments and melodies and things like that while still it being a cover, you know.
I like this question from chat. Overtime, more questions. I do like this question though. What's your take on covers, like covers versus standards?
Covers versus standards. Can you clarify the question a bit?
Clarify that a little bit more. Me, how I took that on is I would take a cover as trying to play something that's really, kind of strictly held to the original, or maybe even playing over the original track in some way. And whereas a lot of times playing standard, yes, you're playing a tune or a melody or something that everyone knows, but you're bringing, like you said, bringing your own interpretation. What would be your take on the difference between those two?
Jazz playing jazz standards is like a very specific game. Yeah. It's got clearly defined rules that aren't like rules, or you must do it this way. It's just rules that everyone's learned so they know how to play the game, so they don't have to discuss what they're going to do every time, and some shortcuts to language. So I mean, it's very common that a song will become a bit of a standard, because people love it so much and love playing over it. For example, a tune that you'll often get called at like traditional jazz jams, you'll often get Bob Marley tunes called, because people just want to play them, and they'll interpret them in different ways. So I think the lines are blurred between cover and standard. Standard just means that you can call it when you're with jazz musicians and you'll kind of know what the song is and what to do. So in a way, it has lots of correlations with like folk music, for example. They'll say, oh, do you know this jig or this reel? They say, oh yeah, that one. Or do you do this in the B section? Oh no, I do that. All right, let's go, right? It's just like a common framework and a common language so that you can play with new people without having to arrange too much. So yeah, half of one, half a dozen of one, 6 of the other,
Sure.
Yeah. There's another question. I think that will be our last question.
Overtime.
So Mr. X asks, please ask EdPlaysJazz about his song constructions, where he analyzes songs and rebuilds them instrument by instrument on stream.
Yeah. I used to do builds. So in the beginning, my first days, someone would request a song, and I would then spend the next 3.5 hours transcribing all the parts out and then trying to put it back together. Mr. X is asking about them, possibly why I don't do them anymore. And I suppose it's too many instruments. They're all so hard. Like, people make really good requests, which is really good music, but it's really hard on like all 7 of the instruments involved. So I have to spend so much time basically learning entire new techniques for every song. And there were just too many instruments. Easy way to put it: if I constantly play 7 instruments, 5 of them at all times will be broken. And when I get one repaired, another will break. When I get one repaired, another will break, and one repaired. And that kind of has like a psychological like mirror thing as well, where every time I try and do something really hard on a new instrument, I have to go through that gut-wrenching feeling of inadequacy,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So,
well, I don't have
MRX
any more.
is definitely that way because he's like, the builds are so stunning. I could only imagine, because for me, I know as a songwriter, the process of writing a song is, like you said, hours and hours and hours. And especially if I'm dealing with the type of music I like, which is complex and has lots of different layers, and that would be ridiculously difficult to do. It's why I personally don't really enjoy playing covers that much. It's not, if I do, I want to, both do the original song honor, and I want to kind of bring my own voice into it, like you're describing. So it's important.
So Ed, is there anything more that you want to tell us before you go? And also, as your last thing, and Seven is asking for an exclusive shield bash before you go.
And you want a shield bash? They want a shield bash and a gong. Where's my? I'll do that for you. Boom! A wall! A wall! Protect the jazz! They're trying to take our coffee. We'll protect the coffee and the jazz.
The coffee and the jazz.
Jazz.
Is there
coffee
anything...
and jazz go together like cheese and
Is there anything
sauce.
you want to tell our viewers other than, obviously, go follow EdPlaysJazz, but is there anything you want to tell
We're on a quest to build a new music industry that pays musicians directly to deliver education and performance in their community. You can help just by knowing about it and being cool.
That's amazing.
Thank you. You've already helped.
Yeah.
Such a worthy cause.
It's selfish. This is the thing. It's selfish because I can't play my music unless I can pay 12 people like a part-time enough for them to do it as a part-time.
Absolutely.
I have to get people paid for my music to actually happen, not just like recording the bits myself for it actually to happen. I got to get 10 other people paid. So that's the start of my quest.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ed.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys soon.
Bye. Have a good one. Thank you so much for being here, Ed. Thank you.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know him that well, huh?
No, I didn't.
You didn't, right? Yeah. So
I mean, I'd obviously seen him. He's since I've been a part of this community for almost a year now. I've obviously seen him in chat, and I had dropped in on a couple of streams, but I honestly have not like really participated in the community or anything like that. I just would lurk and watch him play for a little bit.
But he does have a good cause, and he's super
it's
awesome.
Just, it to me, it's almost criminal, and I'm sure he feels the same way. That it's like it's so goddamn difficult to make a living as a musician, and this is coming from a family of musicians where basically they struggled all the time for years and years to raise families and to do what they were doing, and they were pretty much at the near the top of where they could be in their industry and in skill level. So it's just and too many people look at it. This is the other issue I think you have, and I think I've discussed this with Sabby and other people before. It's like too many people look at it as, oh, well, it's just a passion thing. If you like what you do, you shouldn't necessarily be paid for it, or you should only be paid for it if you sell millions of copies of it or whatever, because it's a good thing. It's like good to have a job as a musician. And it's like, fuck yeah, it's good to have a job as a musician and build your skill and all that stuff. And not everyone does it. The same as not everyone becomes an engineer, and not everyone becomes, not everybody is focused on doing an office job. It's like, it's still a job, and it takes thousands and thousands of hours of work for mastery. And, everyone's like, but it's fun, so you can't make money doing it, you loser. Pay us to play in our gig. Yeah, the problem is, okay, I want to tackle something that as a professional musician in that time. As a professional musician in that time, who did it full time, right? This is important to mention, because in that time, I had a lot of people not accept my offer, because there were a lot of other musicians and other bands who were used to the whole, we'll do it for exposure, let's do it for exposure, or we'll do it just for a couple of bucks. So, to be honest, I was always a little bit mad to those musicians, because they are, and that still happens, are putting down the cost of music, and the venuer. So just as the listener, the mainstream listener doesn't care if the music is top notch or if the music is just good, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, of course they don't. They just care if they're making money. Yeah, exactly. And then it'll keep people in there to stare at the musicians. Exactly. And if even just good is good enough for them to not pay very good and pay a lesser price. So musicians kind of themselves also got into this mentality and adapted this mentality of, I'm not a professional, or I don't do this full time, or I do this for a hobby, so I can't ask for that much money. But sometimes hobbyists, I think this is the first time I say this on stream, and a lot of people would probably, but I do have this opinion. Sometimes hobbyists are better than professionals in terms of skill and everything, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, for sure. That doesn't mean anything. So you can have good music from hobby bands, but they will play more sometimes because they don't ask for the same prices. And so because the venuer has that option to, either I pay like almost nothing or just a meal for somebody versus, paying a full price for a good band, why should I do that? If I can just get another band. So there is, we as musicians. Oh my God, shut the fuck up, Sarah. Amazing Existence, show. Thank you for telling me to shut the fuck up. Thank you for the 10 euros. I really appreciate it, Existence. Thank you, Dora. But the problem is also the music community itself, who started to adapt
this type of mentality of, oh, I'll do it just for exposure. Oh, I'll do it just for $100 for a five-man band. You know what I mean? And that's part of the problem. It's not only the industry, it's the musicians themselves too that just sell out basically. And that is a big problem. And not a lot of people talk about this, but that I'm legit mad at those people. Like if you are a musician or a hobby musician who just doesn't believe in their craft but plays gigs and says, well, I'm not a professional, I don't do this full time, so why should I ask for a reasonable price? Well, you are part of the problem, and I highly suggest you stop that, because you are part of the problem, and you are part of why musicians in general don't get paid, because you enable this.
Well, and too much of this is because, and to some degree that music has been so closely tied to not great bedfellows. Like, I don't feel like music should necessarily generally have to be driven by bars. Like, bars is just where you happen to see music played often, but there's plenty of people who don't want to go to a bar to watch music. Yeah, there are concert halls and things like that for greater ones, but it's kind of to Ed's point. Like, it would be great to have gigging venues where, the musicians in the venues are paid fairly, and you're kind of pulling the BS industry nonsense out of it.
Yeah. And also there's one part or aspect of it that a lot of people do not talk about, is if you have a small bar, and I understand this, if you have a small bar and there's not, it doesn't fit a lot of people in it, but you still want to have live music and you still want to keep the live music alive, then yes, then that makes sense. If you don't pay the musicians a lot. I've played a lot of gigs at like small bars because I wanted to support the idea behind it, which is, hey, you are a small bar, you don't make a lot of money, you can only fit like maybe 30 people or something, but I'll play there anyways for just an entrance or something, because I know you can't do more. But then there are big places, big venues, big brands, etc., who do and who organize these things, and they could pay a good price, but they don't, because they can get it for super cheap from other musicians, from the hobby musicians or the musicians who are just part-time or something, because a full-time musician would never ask for those prices. You would never just make, I don't know, 20 quid or 50 quid for a fucking 3-hour or 4-hour gig, or sometimes 5-hour gig. That's fucking crazy.
Speaking to that point, I mean, people have been making it as a joke in the chat room, but it's totally true. It's like, obviously I don't consider myself to be like a super well-known musician or anything, but yeah, I mean, like at this point, I feel it sucks, because for me, like for even the streams to continue, I basically had to rely on my community for support for that to happen, which sucks. Like, I would love to be able to have more opportunities to be, and I do, to promote music and to get it out there and to let people use it. Like, for example, I've been really happy to see like Sunfire has been using it, on my Instagram and her promos. Like, I reposted some of it on my Instagram, and it's cool to see. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, without that, I would be fucked, because there's no value at all in music, because the same reason there always hasn't been. It's because someone comes along with the vacuum and sucks all the money out and then says, music's not worth anything. It's like, yeah, go into Spotify headquarters and sit with their CEO and tell them that music isn't worth anything.
Yeah.
Tell them that. And then watch as they laugh.
Yeah.
Because of course they do. It's the same. It's just a different set of hands in a different vacuum that's sucking all the money out of the industry, rather than that. I would work for Squid. I enjoy unagi. I would work for some unagi.
It's just difficult, because there's so many people involved. There's professionals involved. There's hobbyists involved. There are the venuers and the small bars involved that also don't have any money, And there's also the big people involved, the big brands. And there's also obviously the music industry, as in labels and managers and producers involved. There's a lot of different worlds involved and a lot of different budgets involved. But if you...
and of course. And there is money there. That's the big lie. There is money there. that everyone will act like there's not money there. It's just the money's not going where it should go.
Exactly.
It's going to labels. It's going to Spotify. It's going to, it's going wherever it's going. Marty Bunch,
thank you so much for gifting those 5 gifts of Sugate say 90 to Steven.
My plea for computer parts.
Harbinger Man and to be goddess and to Unf. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's
thank you so much for that.
It's just it's it's sad because it's not enough talked about that. Yes, musicians are part of the problem too because they allow this to happen.
Well, they are, and then you watched what just happened in the recent kind of DMCA thing that went down on Twitch. It's like 90% of the comments that you see were like "fuck musicians" and there should be no copyright and we shouldn't, we should just be able to do whatever we want. And I'm like, that's where I've always been torn on it. And I kind of brought this up when we discussed it in the past of, look, I appreciate good cover musicians and I think they should be able to make a living. And I also know that a lot of those people are doing it off of the backs of other musicians and those musicians aren't being compensated in any way. And of course it was inevitable for, the labels and everyone to start looking this way. And everyone acts like, oh, it's never going to be a serious problem. Of course it fucking is. Yeah. Because of course they realize when you see streamers who are making, 4 figures, 5 figures, 6 figures a year off of this, of course they're going to start coming looking for their cut. Of course they're going to do that.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Makes sense. But what you were saying, like people saying, fuck musicians and DMCA. Musicians saying the same too, by the way. Music streamers.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Music streamers
were saying the same thing. Yeah.
Being like, oh, I didn't do anything. Like, I don't understand the whole thing. Those are music streamers who don't own copyright, so obviously they don't know what that means, But, I was baffled.
5-Hit Dune brings up a point. Go ahead, continue.
Sorry, I was baffled at that people on Twitter, like music streamers on Twitter, were like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, why should I pay for somebody else's work? Like, I'm a musician myself, blah, blah. Like, that blows my mind. And those people are also part of the problem,
Well, and what 5-Hit Dune said, radio was this way when I was young and wanted to get into it. I mean, radio was the straight up mob. There was basically no other way around it. Radio was controlled, and it still was controlled by a select few middlemen or a select few program managers or a select few people. It was basically the mob. And that's why labels were helpful to musicians in the sense that they paid off the mob to get, spins of your record on the radio and to get those, essentially all that stuff was controlled. Yeah. Now, it's just it's the same mob just in different clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. Well, and that's the thing I don't get is like, yes, I while I agree, and I know it's a controversial issue, while I agree, there should be copyright options and should be options and to, compensate musicians. And while I also agree that I think that, it's most musicians would like, there was never a way I was going to go after Alice for doing a cover of my song, for example. I was honored by it and flattered by it. But I also think, there are people that are making a living off of these things. Probably there are some people right now, I guarantee on Twitch, this is totally unfounded, hot take, whatever, call it a bad take. I bet there are some cover musicians on Twitch right now that are making more than some of the original artists of the songs that they're covering.
For sure.
I bet that's happening.
For sure.
I bet that's happening.
Yeah, especially some of the covers. Obviously not Creep or anything, but like,
Yeah, well, Radiohead is just a different animal. Just a different animal. Well, no, it's like, the funny part about that is I'm sure Radiohead would feel the same fucking way about it. Radiohead doesn't even like that song. They're like, for the most part, coming around on it, but it's just at the same time, yeah. It's just, I get it. It's not about hating Radiohead or Jeff Buckley. I brought that up. It's not that there's anything inherently wrong with the song. It's just that I feel that a lot of the people that I see performing the song don't get it or don't understand it or can't perform it in the way that I relate to the original song. And that's a personal thing. It's not saying, oh, well, that musician is garbage because I don't relate to how they do the cover. No, it's not that. It's just I relate to those songs in a very specific way. And a lot of times when I hear them, they're not stirring those same emotions for me, or they're stirring something totally different, which is not the reaction that I want to have. When I hear those songs.
That's obviously personal preference, and that's. Yeah.
Well, I'm fucking right, so you're wrong. Right. If you like, no, it's okay. Yes,
well, I'm one of those. True. I'm one of the Creep and Hallelujah performers.
I know, and I don't like you. We already know this. I don't like you at all.
I mean, I do when I perform Hallelujah. I do sing the verses that nobody ever sings. you know?
Yeah, I really enjoy when you sound like you warble like a stabbed pig who's like dying in the pig pen.
Yeah.
Like, that's my favorite note. My favorite note for you. That's it's just how I relate to those songs. It has nothing to do with the musicians that play them.
I know what you mean.
If your noodle gets super, you know, if you get super noodly, you know, and to creep, then that's your privilege. I'm not ever saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you suck.
I can noodle things how I want them to noodle. I
really dislike you. That's what
I know
it boils
that.
down
I mean,
to.
that's the last word of
I hate
today.
this stream.
Silence Nose hates me. Did I say nose? Did I say?
Thank you guys so much for the support. It makes a big difference. I really appreciate it.
It does, yes.
It as we mention this on every show, but we obviously have costs that go into the show, and we split everything that comes into the show. So it does make a huge difference for both of us, especially me, who I don't have viewers. And last night I had to do a telethon last night, and I cried a lot. It was
right.
And I even had to delete the VOD because chat told me if I wouldn't sing certain songs, they would never watch me again. And so I just cried a lot. It was sad.
Right.
It was sad for me.
Right. Okay. Do you have anything
All right, well,
else to say
I hope the studio catches on fire. Peace out.
Oh. Okay. Well, Silence Noise, please go follow him. He's super awesome, and he wants this studio to catch on fire, which it has sometimes, and you know, it happened before, and you know, yeah. Oh well, but this was a very interesting episode today. I'm actually very happy with this episode. We talked a lot about jazz. We talked a lot about music, about the music industry, about how we see things on music, on Twitch music, how we see things on IRL music. And I cried myself to sleep over his stream. Yeah, same, to be honest, same. But thank you so much for all the support. I really appreciate it, for all the bits and subs and donos and all of that. You guys are awesome. Like Silence already said, you guys help this keep alive, and hopefully at some point we have a sponsor. If you guys have a brand or know of any brand that would like to sponsor this, you know, we could do that. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, guys. As you know, next week we have another episode. I believe next week we have Jersh, I think it's Jersh next week. And same time as always, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 10 p.m. CET. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, guys. And have a great night. And let's give some love to a little music streamer streaming right now. Let's go.